make your living servicing and repairing equipment like this, you're given lots of responsibility. You're responsible for doing the work right, getting the machine back on the job quickly, and keeping the customer happy. But as a mechanic, you have a responsibility to yourself and those around you to work safely. Accident prevention should be at the top of your to-do list. It's the most important part of any work order you'll ever open. This video has been prepared as a reminder that you can avoid accidents by making safety a priority. Every company, every service department should have an accident prevention training program, and every mechanic should take all possible steps to assure their own personal safety. There are 3 segments to this video. The first emphasizes safety in the service shop. The second deals with repairs done in the field. The third covers general safety considerations anytime you're around heavy equipment. It is recommended that all 3 segments be viewed in their entirety, but we've organized the tape so that each segment can be viewed in a separate session for your convenience. And now, our first segment, safety in the service shop.
I've made a good living servicing heavy equipment. There's nothing else I would rather do than work around this stuff. I consider myself a real pro, and being a pro means taking a proactive approach to safety. Now for me, that's safety with an emphasis on accident prevention. In all the years I've done this kind of work, I've really benefited from safety practices we observe every day here in the shop. Let me tell you a little story. We had a guy here who did real good work. Boy, was he proud of how quick he turned some jobs around. Problem was, he cut some corners trying to outdo the rest of us. His biggest mistake? Failing to keep his workspace clean. He'd spill oil and work in that puddle all day or until the job was done. One day, it happened. A disaster just waiting to happen. Well, he'd spilled some oil and it spread to the far side of the machine. One of the other guys, walking by reading a job ticket, didn't see it. He slipped and fell. Luckily, he wasn't hurt too bad. He missed a couple days with a sprained wrist and a bruised hip. But the guy who caused the spill and then let it sit there, well, he suffered a case of guilty conscience. He felt so bad about someone else being a victim of his carelessness that he made a vow on the spot never to let sloppiness cause another accident. His whole attitude toward accident prevention began to change and improve. He put signs on the inside and outside of his toolbox that read, "Safety first." From that point on, there wasn't a more safety-conscious guy in the shop. He cleaned up spills as soon as they happened. He made sure tools were cleaned, inspected for damage, and put away as soon as he was done with them all. This newfound organization seemed to improve his efficiency, but that wasn't all. He started using screens when welding to make sure none of the other guys were subject to eye flash burns, and checked out all the fire extinguishers to make sure they were charged and in their proper location. He always wore safety glasses and reminded others to do the same. Kept earplugs on hand and wore them when working around engines and noisy equipment. His interest in safety seemed to grow every day. Why, he even purchased safety shoes with the extra metatarsal protection. He started checking up on tools like the handheld grinder just to make sure all the safety guards were in place and in good shape. Posted safety instruction signs in areas where special care was required. Inspected lifting equipment daily and reported all worn and damaged components to his foreman. Started an inventory of all the hazardous chemicals and their material safety data sheets, and made sure we had a contingency plan in the event of a chemical accident or spill. He also reminded us that electric power tools should have internal and external inspections, checking for cut power cords or sparking from the motor to reduce the chance of electric shock. He told us to keep our backs straight while lifting and was constantly reminding that exercise would strengthen back and stomach muscles and help keep us healthy on the job. Sturdy ladders for climbing, proper lifting techniques. This guy thought of everything. And he got us thinking too. He was good. So good, in fact, that he's gone on to be safety trainer for the whole company. Safety around here is priority number one. We've got a good training program, an excellent safety record, and a great place to work.
I'm one of those guys who really enjoys field repairs. Maybe it's the fresh air, maybe it's just being on my own, I don't know. But I like going where the machines are. Seems more interesting somehow. At least it is to me. Same goes for my buddy too. He and I think a lot alike. We go on a job with half a ton of tools and 20 years of experience. And as good as we think we are, we're still learning. We've gone from cables and gears to hydraulics and onboard diagnostics. Seen it all. And we've kept our eye on ourselves too, playing it safe. We owe our interest in accident prevention to a little mistake my friend made about 4 years ago. He was called out to one job site, a government road job, where the contractor stood to earn a bonus because he was ahead of schedule. He really wanted that bonus, and my buddy wanted to help him get it. But in his earnestness and eagerness to please, there was a mistake. The operator had been complaining that the hydraulics weren't responsive. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he knew something was wrong. He was in a hurry to get back to work, and he stood by as my friend opened up the hydraulics. He started opening a line while the operator was still describing the problem, and became distracted to the point of forgetting to depressurize the system. He'd never made that mistake before. That coupling came loose, and a spray of fluid with a temperature of 200 degrees came shooting out so fast neither of them had time to move. Fortunately, the spray shot away from them. They were just plain lucky. If any of it had come their way, they could have been burned. So what did these guys learn from this near miss? Well, for starters, pay attention. You're there to service the machine, and that's too big a job to let yourself be distracted. Get as much information as you can about the problem before you begin. Then ask the operator and others to keep a safe distance while you work. The mistake these guys made put them both at risk. And another thing you should have done was to get familiar with that particular machine. Systems differ from model to model, and updates within model families require that we learn the service points and read all the warnings before taking on any repair. When he got back to the office, my friend told me and the other guys about his first and last lapse of common sense. Well, that started a round of storytelling about some of the different situations we've all run into. Out of that, we renewed our efforts for on-the-job safety. One guy told how he injured a finger removing the belly pan from a machine. He failed to use supports, so when the pan dropped, it got him. It's important to take lifting equipment into the field and use it. Another fellow said he had a near miss when an engine cover he removed and placed overhead was blown loose from the machine and just about struck him on its way down. The noise when it hit the ground was enough of a lesson, he said, to remember never to place loose objects overhead. Well, we swapped all kinds of stories and came up with a long list of common sense safety procedures that we all agreed on. Things like avoiding contact with all hot spots, like turbos and manifolds. Even removing an oil plug with your bare hands can be a hazard when the oil is hot. Using approved lifting equipment to get equipment up off the ground, and using strong bracing stands to keep it there. Anything but approved and properly maintained equipment creates a stability problem, placing you or others in the path of a crushing hazard. Mounting and dismounting machines requires care. You don't want to slip and fall, so keep platform surfaces clean and clear. And don't improvise by standing or working from areas that were not intended for that purpose. In northern climates, be alert to snow and ice. And always check to be sure step irons are maintained and secured. It's always important to observe lockout, tagout procedures to avoid accidental system startups, which could cause you to become trapped or entangled in moving parts. Removing the key is a requirement, but it's only the first step. You must control all sources of hazardous energy, such as electrical, hydraulic, gravitational, and pneumatic, to prepare the machine for service. Let someone know where you're working at all times. You may not have an observer in a position to see if you're in trouble, so at the very least you'll want to call back to the shop to let the dispatcher know which job site you're at and about how long you expect to be there. If there's a guard on duty, ask them to keep an eye on you. And of course, make sure the field truck doesn't leave the shop without a first aid kit and an operational fire extinguisher on board. When you're working on site, you're likely to be in a remote location, a long way from help should you need it. So approach your work carefully. Use the right tools and support equipment. Stay alert and never let your guard down.
Working around heavy equipment requires a commitment to quality and performance, along with a commitment to accident prevention. Follow all safeguards that apply and any recommendations. Your personal well-being and the well-being of others around you depends on how well you observe safety procedures. Use these guidelines whenever you're operating or servicing machinery. First, know the equipment. Don't get onto a machine to either operate it or service it if you're not familiar with how it works. Never assume that your knowledge of one machine qualifies you to operate all others. Use climbing grab handles and rails while getting on and off. Maintain 3 points of contact at all times. If you are carrying tools or equipment, make several trips. Don't stand on any part of a machine that wasn't intended to be used as a platform. Never ride or let others ride as a passenger. One of the most common machine hazards is fire. Prevent them by not smoking. Keep open flames and other ignition sources away from the machine, and always carry an operational fire extinguisher with certification for both electrical and fuel source fires. All machines are equipped with backup alarms. Check them daily to make sure they are working. If you find a malfunctioning or disconnected alarm, repair or reconnect it immediately. Never stand or work around a machine while it's operating. That includes simple things like checking fluid levels. Do that when the machine is off. Remove the key from every parked machine and tag it every time it's being serviced to make sure no one tries to start or operate it. Never start a machine unless you've done a walk-around inspection to assure yourself that everything is in good operating condition. And use that walk-around to make sure there are no people or obstacles in your way. If you see something that you don't believe is standard equipment, have it inspected and certified. Alterations or modifications to a machine can impair its operating characteristics and interfere with proper functioning of safety equipment. If you're thinking that a lot of this stuff is pretty basic, you're right. And if you're thinking, I've heard this all before, then I say good. Because no matter how basic or familiar, accident prevention must be your top priority. A good friend of mine put it this way: you've got to walk the talk. That's simple. It's not enough to know about safety. You have to put what you know to good use every day in everything you do. On-the-job safety is the result of proper training, good work habits, use of approved and properly maintained equipment and protective gear, and awareness that you are in the best position to assure your own safety. Safety is no accident.